Hi everyone, and welcome to another video in the Cosmic Tower Science series. And in this video, we're going to go more in the measurement of subtle energies. As we've talked about in previous videos, modern science instruments are simply not able to measure the subtle energy spectrum. They're mainly focused on the electromagnetic spectrum, and as such, they miss over 90% of what really shapes and influences our reality. By now, most scientists agree that everything is energy, yet we cannot explain what energy is, and that might remain a mystery for eternity. But when science talks about energy, the simplest description is the ability to create an effect. Yet it excludes the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual planes, even even though all of us experience effects at those levels each and every day. The other thing science has done to make it quote unquote objective is exclude the human being from the measurements. And as you can see here in the quote by Goethe, and I'm not going to read it, he actually talks about how sad that is because the human being is actually the best and the most exact scientific instrument possible. So with physical radiesthesia, as it is called, the human being and its energy field play a central role. So what does this mean, radiesthesia? Radiesthesia is a word that is rooted in Latin and basically means the sensitivity to radiation. So the science of radiesthesia uses the human sensitivity to subtle energy fields to obtain information from the energy levels that are typically not accessible to our five senses. And what I want to show you in this video is that this science is millennia old, but it's also being used in our modern days. And I want to show you that it is really a science and doesn't just belong to the realm of woo-woo. If you look at the ancient Egyptians, I mean, they practiced this as a precise science of all the qualitative interactions within our universe. And I remember Dr. Karim talking about how the ancient Egyptian surgeons were able to perform complex brain operations that now would require a highly sophisticated technology for brain mapping and detection. So the Egyptians clearly already had instruments that were way more sophisticated, right? Another example is in geology. Every gold mine that modern satellites have discovered in what's largely uncharted territory of the Sinai and the Western deserts, it turned out that they had already been found and mined in earlier millennia by the ancient Egyptians. So they had ways, to measure the subtle energy spectrum. Throughout all of history, ancient cultures used radiesthesia to locate the sacred power spots of the earth on which then the temples were built. But also in more modern days, radiesthesia has been used. The German army used radiesthesia in World War I and World War II for mine detection, and then as did the American military in Vietnam. So today, many institutions all over the world are researching different aspects of this science. And radiesthesia also has been the launch pad for other sciences, such as psychotronics or radionics. Now, if you go look more at the modern radiesthesia, a lot of work there was done by the French and the German schools of physical radiesthesia. The French would refer to it as microvibrational physics. So one thing to really understand is that the science of physical radiesthesia is very different from dowsing, right? Where somebody uses a pendulum and asks a question. This can be heavily influenced by the conscious or the unconscious mind. Radiesthesia is completely different in a sense because the instruments are calibrated to either qualitative color scales, to angles on dials, as you will see later, or virtual cones to wavelengths. So it's really the instrument that is in resonance with a particular subtle quality or a subtle plane. And then Dr. Karim took all the work from the French and the German radiesthesists from the early 1900s, and he built on top of that. And he integrated them all in a scientific radiesthesia by using cutting-edge physics of universal harmonics, ancient architecture, sacred geometry, and energy aspects of other sciences to form a really comprehensive system. And through this system, Dr. Karim developed new and accurate instruments for detecting polarities, the one harmonizing quality that we talked about in previous videos, the 12-band vibrational spectrum, horizontal waves, vertical waves, Earth energy grids, and the actual planes and subplanes of nature. So to further show this difference between the scientific, the physical radiesthesia and dowsing, we need to look at perception first. So we have the absolute reality, right, which is the total external vibrational information. And then what happens through our windows of perception is that we experience a very narrow range of frequencies through our sense organs. So this comes from Dr. Karim's book. I think it's the Blue Book, but he really talks about how this perception works. So at the first level, at the sense organ, a specific range of vibration is selected from the total vibratory range of energy that exists within the absolute reality. And each of our sense organs is designed to really focus to select on a limited vibratory range with which it interacts. So as it's interacting with that particular range, there is a nervous reaction to the information of the different sense organs. And this nervous reaction is the same for any sense organ. It's either an increase or a decrease in the different components of the electrical impulses in the nerve. I mean, there's no color, sound, smell, or taste that is transferred to the nerves, right? All nerves are the same. They all transfer electrical impulses, which can then carry certain codes of information as a result of the reaction to the energy that's received by the sense organ. And then at the third level, our nervous reaction is then evaluated according to the qualitative scale of color, sound, smell, taste, or touch, right? We perceive in the color red or the sound of the note C or do, or that it tastes sweet, right? We perceive qualities and not quantities through our sense organ. And then at the fourth level, that's actually where the meaning level is, where the subjective level starts of this perception. And what happens is in the brain, all the different types of information coming from the different scales of perception are put together. And they're correlated with the memory contents of the brain, and based on that, a certain meaning is formed, and we put all that together. It forms a sort of an inner reality, right? And then at level 5, this perceived reality is projected outside, onto its respective areas of the absolute reality. And then with the selection of the senses, the brain produces the world around us with its shapes, colors, sounds, smells, and so on. These criteria are projected from inside our brains onto absolute reality. And that doesn't mean that the entire reality just, flows out of you. But remember, there is the one absolute reality, and it's almost like that is being instructed to take certain shapes and to behave a certain way. And what's really important here is to understand the difference between, for example, a perceived color and the qualitative effect of that color on our system. So one way to show that is if we show somebody a red colored paper, we will get reactions on two levels. The first obvious subjective effect is that the person sees the red colored paper and then reacts to it based on the conscious and subconscious associations. Now, on another level, it's much more objective, which is that the energetic system reacts to the effect of the quality of the vibratory frequency of the energy field that particular color has on our energy field. So if we would take that red paper and we put it inside the person's energy field, but not in the field of vision, but close to the body, so it's in the energy field, we get the unperceived secondary effect only, which is purely objective, right? And this is really important to understand the difference here between mental dowsing and physical radiesthesia. So physical radiesthesia works on this third level that you see here, which is objective in nature, right? The instruments, with the help of our awareness, there is a resonance and the instrument will respond to that. And there's really no interaction of the mind. While with mental dowsing, it's really on the meaning level, and that of course can get tainted by what the person consciously and unconsciously believes about what they are measuring. So we don't have this with physical radiesthesia, and that's a really important difference between physical radiesthesia and mental dowsing, what most people are familiar with. So how does this work? Well, the human being is an open energy system, meaning that there is a continuous flow from the collective, from the environment around us to the individual, and vice versa, right? And this happens on many different planes of creation. This is not just on the physical, it's also on the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, the vitality, as well as the physical plane. So that's important to know. We are open energy systems, and we can interact with all these levels and all these qualities. And then we talked about awareness in a previous video. So when we put our awareness on something, it creates a resonance, meaning that there is an exchange of energy qualities. So then we have another component with physical radiesthesia, which is the instrument itself. So the instruments are calibrated to color scales, angles, dials, wavelengths. It's the actual instrument that is in resonance with a particular quality or with a particular plane. So radiesthesia is using physical tools and then using our awareness to tune in, to create a resonance. And then as we create that resonance with whatever we are measuring, there is going to be a reaction in the human energy field on the objective level. Remember, before the mind gets even engaged, we're mainly holding the awareness, and then the pendulum, the instrument that has a resonance with whatever quality or plane that we want to measure, is going to start moving based on the effect that energy has on the human energy field. So you could say that radiesthesia is the use of physical tools within perceived reality to get information from absolute reality. And when we do this with a cosmic tower, for example, what are some of the things that we can detect? We can detect a very strong presence of the one harmonizing quality, right? The torus that's really strong for that. We typically also, what we also see is a strong horizontal negative green, a carrier wave. Remember when we were talking about the vibrational spectrum, we talked about these special waves that are the horizontal, the spiritual carrier wave. That's another thing we can measure with cosmic towers. And the other thing is that this one harmonizing quality, we can measure the different planes of existence and of reality. And what we find with a cosmic tower is that we find a strong harmonizing quality of all the subtle layers. So physical all the way through spiritual back to the source. So what I want to do is I want to show you some of these instruments so you have an idea what it looks like. So this is an example, what Dr. Gilbert calls the ICUP, and Dr. Kareem calls the IQP. So this is an example. Within this pendulum, there's all different geometries that resonate with each plane of reality. And then also off the tip, it actually generates the one harmonizing quality. So by changing the string length, I can turn into a particular wavelength. And then through its resonance with the different planes that's built into the different geometries in the pendulum, I can measure specific planes. So that's one example. Another one is this one, which is a horizontal pendulum. With this, you can change the dials to look for a particular band of the vibrational spectrum as a horizontal wave. So you can change this dial, and then you can measure, because then this instrument has a resonance with that particular energy quality, and it will show you whether horizontal waves of that particular band of the spectrum are present. Here's another one, but this is to measure the vertical waves. Remember how the vertical waves are detrimental? So you can actually measure if there's any vertical waves and which band of the vibrational spectrum that these are in. And then there's like different attachments for these. So you can put this attachment on it to measure the Curry grids in the earth, or you can use this particular one. It goes on the bottom, and then you're tuned into like the Banker or the Hartman Earth energy grids. So that was it for today's video. I thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye-bye.